All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Hemp Chat. I'm your host, Eric Cross, and today we're going to talk about cannabis and something called CHS. And we have with us today Alice Moon, who has CHS, and I'm going to let her tell you about CHS. She is a PR professional in the cannabis space for over 9 years and has been an advocate and educator about hemp and cannabis. And welcome to the show, Miss Alice Moon.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thank you for bringing your experience and knowledge to us and our listeners. And I'd like to talk about CHS a little bit more. And can you elaborate on what it is?
Yeah, so cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, or CHS for short, is like a developed allergy to cannabis. Basically, the body, for some people, just starts to reject cannabis, and cannabis can cause people with CHS to vomit nonstop, excessively. So the other symptoms include abdominal pain, stomach ache, just nausea, and ultimately vomiting. There's 3 stages to CHS. There's the prodromal stage, which some people stay in for a few years, and that's when you have nausea, stomach ache, some burping, gas, and that stage can last a few years. And then there's the hyperemetic stage, which is when the vomiting starts, and then that stage can last for days, weeks. Some people have thrown up for months. There's been deaths from this because people have thrown up so much that they ultimately have kidney failure and die. And then there's the recovery stage, which is when somebody has quit using cannabis and they recover and heal up.
Wow, that was a lot to really digest. So what I'd like to do is, first off, I would like to go, I don't believe you because no, I'm just teasing. I do believe you. I'm just saying for the listeners, we all know in the space, and that's why Alice is here to really shed light on it. Not, a lot of us don't really realize that people are allergic to cannabis. And so my question for you is, how, you got diagnosed with this, correct?
Correct. Yeah. I was a cannabis consumer for 6 years
Holy cow.
before I started experiencing symptoms. So I used to write edible reviews. So I was consuming an edible a day, and then I would write reviews on it. And yeah, it was 6 years into my consumption, I started just getting really nauseous and throwing up. And I could go into my whole story and experience with it if you'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I think we do want to hear that a little bit more, and I'll have a couple other questions. But yeah, please do tell us the story. We definitely want to hear it.
So I was throwing up off and on like once a month for like 2 years. I adjusted my diet because doctors thought I had acid reflux. I didn't get any better. I cut alcohol out of my life. I didn't get any better. And I was progressively getting worse to the point where I started to throw up almost every day. I saw a GI specialist in 2018 who told me that it was probably the cannabis making me sick. I had heard of CHS, but I was kind of in denial about it. Didn't want to believe that it was truly real because we know cannabis helps with nausea. So why would it be causing someone nausea? It just didn't make sense. But my doctor said to quit for 3 months. So I said, okay, I will. But first, I'm going to go have one last hurrah. And I went to a 5-course infused dinner that had a pairing with flour with it. And that triggered my first severe episode, which lasted 14 days. So I threw up all day, every day for 14 days. It was extremely scary. There wasn't a lot of information about CHS out there. I didn't know, how to handle myself. I didn't know when it was going to end. And that was my first of 3 severe episodes. I had quit using cannabis for a few months. Then I started smoking pesticide-free weed because people think that CHS is caused by pesticides. And my symptoms came back, and that episode lasted 4 days. And then I quit using that and I started using CBD. I was able to use CBD for a few months until I triggered a 16-day episode. And that 16-day episode landed me an ulcer, hernia, bacteria infection, and I was in the hospital for 4 days. So it's very severe.
So it's not only, this is also, people get affected by this, not only by THC, but also CBD.
Yep. Unfortunately, yep. CBD can do it too.
So what forms, I mean, in the beginning, if you were using this, for how many, 6 years you were
Here.
using cannabis, and then all of a sudden one day the, it flipped on you.
It just flipped on me. Yep. Just all of a sudden I was getting sick, and it took a long time, 2 years of me being sick before we figured out that it was cannabis. Because it's not immediate, the side effects. So it's not like I would smoke a joint and then I would go throw up. It would be like I would smoke and then the next day I would throw up. It takes
Oh,
a bit of time for your body to process the cannabinoids. So it wasn't immediate. So it was hard to put it together that it could potentially be that.
wow. I'm just, I'll be 50 here at the end of the year. I've been around cannabis, and I've known people to have some types of, like, they say, oh, I never got high. They say I never, it doesn't do anything for me. And I have heard some people that have said, it doesn't make me feel real good. And so we never, when we're living in the moment, we never really put that together because A, the information hasn't been out there, and B, you're like, whatever, right? So this is something, I'm glad you're out here educating about this and opening up more eyes to this topic.
Yeah, and I want to be clear that I'm 100% pro cannabis. Like, I love the plant so much. I'm determined to find a cure so that way I can use cannabis again.
Yeah.
This is just a negative, unfortunate side effect to cannabis. And the reality is that the plant does have side effects. A lot of people say that there is no negative side effects to cannabis, but that's not true. It can cause anxiety. For some people, it can cause seizures, which is very rare, but it can occur. And then for a small amount of people, CHS can occur. So I think talking about the positives, it's important to also talk about the negatives and be realistic about it. But that doesn't mean that the plant is negative itself. The plant is phenomenal, and I'm 100% pro cannabis in all aspects of it.
Well, yeah, I believe we're all we do know that there is healing benefits with hemp and cannabis, but when you come down with a syndrome like this, that really steps you back, and you have to reevaluate your outlook on it and how. Right now, what I'm getting at, I guess the common people may not even know, because a lot of people, there are everyday consumers of cannabis, but more and more newcomers are coming to cannabis, right, for their ailments. So this is something that you must be out there to at least inform people of when they go to use cannabis, because we see, our words and language and education. This can help you. This can be beneficial. You can use this for anti-inflammatory, antispasmatics and so on. But I, I've never heard of this before, and I've been in the space for many, many years.
Yeah, I
So
mean, it's not talked about nearly enough because people don't want it to be used against cannabis. There's a lot of hesitation to people talking about this, and I've actually received a lot of hate from people in the industry for talking about it. One person said that I deserve to be beaten because I was talking about this, and so it's been a mental challenge. Not only I can't use cannabis, but I'm dealing with the backlash for speaking out about my experience. While I'm still 100% pro cannabis, but some people don't want to listen to me saying that, and they just think that I'm trying to attack the plant, or that I work for big pharma, which is one of the weirdest things that I hear. So there's been a lot of negativity with it. So, but with that, I do still get a lot of support from the community too. It's about 50-50. And a lot of people, there's one company who they told all of their employees about my story. They said, go read about Alice Moon, go read about CHS, let's educate ourselves. And one of the employees, his girlfriend, hit me up at 6 a.m. one day and says, hey, my boyfriend just learned about CHS. I'm in the hospital and I think I have it. And so that just shows the importance of companies and people just talking about this to other people, because chances are someone they know might have it and don't know that they have it because it's not being educated, talked about.
So in your diagnosis, when we talk about your diagnosis, you said your doctor, how did they even come to this? What did they, I mean, can you take us back to that conversation and having them go, okay, well, let's not use cannabis for 3 months. Can you kind of talk about
Yeah,
that?
so she did a physical and I seemed healthy overall. At first, my doctor didn't want to run a bunch of tests because she said it just really seemed like with what I was experiencing. Because one of the things that helps doctors figure this out is if hot baths relieve the symptoms. So
Hmm.
that is like the key trigger to doctors being like, okay, this is CHS. Hot baths, if a hot bath stops you from throwing up, then it's very likely that you have CHS because there's no other syndrome in this world where hot baths relieve the symptoms the way it does with CHS. So my doctor asked me, are you taking a lot of hot baths? And it was like, I was shocked that she even knew that. Yes, I was taking a lot of hot baths. I was like living in the bathtub subconsciously just because I felt better. And I didn't realize that that was a way to stop the symptoms. So at first we didn't do any tests, but I was throwing up for 14 days. So in between that time, it was probably around day 7 after my second urgent care visit. The urgent care doctor called in an emergency order with my GI doctor, and we had a whole bunch of tests done. I was poked and prodded, scanned. They looked at everything they could to see if there was anything going on, and they eliminated every other possibility to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, it's got to be cannabis doing this because I'm healthy otherwise. I was looking very healthy every test that they did. And ultimately, after I quit, that's when I got better, is after my body detoxed the cannabis.
Okay. So your body had to go through all that to get it out of your system finally. And then you were able to determine that um, by another use, you had the same reactions.
Yeah.
Okay. So that goes to one of my questions was, does it matter if you smoke or vape or eat or anything with topicals?
It doesn't matter about the form of consumption. I've surveyed 330 people who have CHS, and everyone was consuming different ways, mainly smoking flower straight. But there are people who are doing dabs, some who are doing vapes, some who are doing edibles. As far as topicals go, we don't really know if topicals have an effect or not. I haven't known of anyone who was trying out topicals solely by itself to see if it would
Sure.
cause any reaction. I personally don't use a topical unless, like, if I get a burn, sometimes when I'm straightening my hair, I'll burn my ear. I'll use a very small, like pea-size amount of cannabis cream to help with the burn. And so I will use that and I'm okay, but that is a very, very small amount, and not that I'm using it constantly at all. So yeah, but smoking, edibles, CBD, all that can cause it.
Ellis, could you tell us, do you have any other types of allergies?
No, I don't. I'm not allergic to anything else.
Okay. Wow. That is okay. That is interesting. I would think that you might have, one would think that you might have other allergies. So this is really interesting stuff for me. So after being diagnosed, tell us, is there specific treatments?
So not really.
Okay.
Hot baths are one thing that can stop the throwing
That's
up,
it.
but then you get severely dehydrated being in the hot tub.
Okay.
And capsaicin cream on the stomach. It's a cayenne pepper based cream, so it mimics the effect of hot water. It basically is a burning sensation on the skin. That can also work for some people. And when I used that, it felt like there's a blowtorch on my skin. So it was very painful, hot fire. That is There's a potential theory that this works because it's affecting the TRPV1 receptor, which is a capsaicin receptor. And the theory is that too many cannabinoids in some people turn off this receptor and makes the digestive system go haywire. And then the hot water or the capsaicin cream turns that receptor back on. And so while the heat is on there, that receptor is working, and that's why the vomiting stops. So that is a theory about the TRPV1 receptor. The other things that can help with the symptoms are there's some medications, some antipsychotics, and benzodiazepines. I think I said that correctly, can stop the vomiting, but then the patient risks having a lot of nasty side effects from the medication. So that part is scary. With the 330 people I've surveyed, a handful of them were given medications and the medications worked, but the patient said that they would have rather throw up than deal with the side effects that they dealt with from the medication.
Wow. Holy cow. In the world of cannabis back, it was always deemed if you used cannabis, you were a stoner and you weren't really the highest caliber or a highly educated person. But you know what I see through this day and age, when we have doctors, lawyers, and other people using cannabis, the point I'm getting at, you use some really big terms just now with all these receptors and uh, IR. So you're really educated about this, syndrome and what you have. What type of other research are people doing on this? Is there other research that's being done with this?
Minimal research is being done because it's so restrictive in the United States to do research since cannabis is illegal on a federal level. Canada has allocated $250,000 towards a study that they just started conducting. They are in the preliminary stages of their study, and so that'll probably be about a year from now that we have some results going on with that. But otherwise, there's very minimal research going on. It's unfortunate, but that's why I have studied so hard on this. I've read every research paper, and I'm kind of determined to find a cure for it. I want to be able to use cannabis again. I don't want this to affect other people. So I have, I dropped out of high school. I never went to college. I am a self-educated person, and I have just studied as hard as I can and learned about the endocannabinoid system and the receptors in our body. I spoke at a cannabis medical science conference last year where Dr. Raphael Meshulam was the keynote speaker, and his right-hand man was on the panel with me. So, trying to really involve myself in the medical side of things, because there's got to be someone pushing for a cure, and that's me.
Well, so there is probably a cure, maybe. I'm just wondering because it, have you eaten just raw cannabis in its acid form without the um, heating up of the cannabinoids?
No, I
I
don't believe
wonder,
so.
there's other people, Dr. Courtney, I can't remember Dr. Courtney's last name. Oh, come on now. So he's had patients that have actually juiced the raw cannabis and consumed and eaten raw cannabis. So I was wondering if that might have a trigger effect or if you've looked into something useful like that. And then there's also Delta 8 that is big on the market right now that it's legal to consume, but people when they heat it, it actually makes a transformation. So maybe you can eat or consume in the juiced or raw form and have benefits. So that's something I would look into.
Well, I don't want to try at this point because I nearly died last year when I tried
Yeah.
CBD. Throwing up for 16 days all day, every day, and getting down to 108 pounds when I'm 5'6", and that was just
Yeah.
so scary. I was near death. So for now, I don't want to use any cannabinoid because it's
No, I
very,
don't blame you, but that could be part of the research group is
yeah,
what I'm
yeah. Right now,
recommending.
no one is doing, like, Canada. They're not actually testing anyone with it. They're just looking to see if capsaicin cream works with the patients. But yeah, THCA might be a possibility. CBN, CBG, those might be possibilities of things that could work. But for now, uh, we don't know.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So what is the word hype? What is it? Hypermesis?
Hyperemesis,
Hyperemesis. Thank you for that clarification. What does that mean?
throwing up.
Just throwing up.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh
essentially.
my gosh. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. That is crazy. Well, I do believe you 110%. Like I said earlier in the episode, I, I just can't believe that this is out there, but I do believe you. And I believe that people need to know and be educated. So how do, what type of outreach do you have and how do people get a hold of you? And I really think more people need to get behind this.
Yeah, so if people want to learn about it, I've built a whole website about CHS. It's www.cannabinoid-hyperemesis.com. And on there, they can read quick FAQ, or they can go and read all the research papers that are out there. I have it all compiled, makes it very easy. They can also read my story. They can read patient stories as well. I have multiple people who've included their story on the website. And then if they want to get in touch with me, Alice Moon at alicemoon.la is my email. And then there's a Facebook group for people who might have CHS, and it's called Recovery from Cannabinoid Hyperemesis Syndrome. And it's a really supportive group full of over 5,000 people who all have it and talk and support each other.
And you're also on Instagram.
Oh, yeah. And my Instagram is.
Yeah, I just found you on there.
Yeah, the Alice Moon, THE Alice Moon. And the CHS Instagram is cannabinoid.hyperemesis.
Great. Wow, there's multiple ways to get a hold of you. And are you leading up some of the research there on this? Do you have a team going on this?
I'm currently working on 2 research papers, one of which I'm doing by myself, and that's the study I conducted of 330 people. And then I'm working with a neuroscience major and a college student on another paper where we're compiling all the information from every paper out there and all the different types of receptors and proteins and what could be going on. And so that paper will probably be out in about a year. So it's a work in progress. But otherwise, I'm not leading any research besides those 2 things. And I look forward to finding some doctors who want to study this, who, are good-hearted and aren't trying to make money off of it. And yeah, I want some answers. I want to be able to smoke weed again.
Well, it's all about saving lives at the end of the day. And if you have allergies, I mean, people have allergies to everything. And I don't know, this is some type of allergic reaction that, is detrimental and almost cost you your life. And when you really examine and take a good look at the causes of something, if people get stung by bees and they have to have epinephrine, right? I don't know what it is. They have to have shots, I wonder if that would be beneficial for, an accidental use, like if you were to come across it or something. I'm just kind of blown away by this. I really am. So holy cow, Alice, I would like to help get this word out. In my opinion, I believe people have to have this information. And at the end of the day, somebody could consume something and technically die. I'm an advocate just like you are for cannabis, and I believe it's but it is not necessarily for everybody. But if you can find the way to use it for everybody and they don't experience CHS, I'm all for it. And I would like to have people reach out to you to help donate to your cause and really get this research going.
Yeah, I just ask that people just tell a friend, talk about it to someone, say, hey, I heard about this interesting thing, CHS, have you heard about it? And telling one person just will make a huge difference. So I ask that of people, and to look out for the symptoms if they think that they might have it, to take a cannabis break. I don't want anyone to overload their system to the point where I got to, because one thing I didn't mention is secondhand smoke affects me now. I'm so sensitive to cannabis that I can't even be in a room with someone smoking weed. So I don't want anyone to get to that point. And I think I got to that point because I pushed it too hard, tried to keep using when I shouldn't have been. So I just want people to look out for those symptoms, take a break, listen to your body, and appreciate the plant.
And if you were consuming in the beginning, and you brought up a great point there, that you can't even be in the room or tolerate it now, where you were a heavy consumer. So I wonder if because there was an overload in your system, and that's what caused the allergy, right? So I do see now more people are doing dabs, more people are dabbing CBD, and I believe they're over medicating, and there's technically no need. We're still learning more and more about this medicine. Yes, it's been around in evolution for thousands and thousands of years, but we can't overconsume anything. It's not good for us. Little bits.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And weed is stronger these days than it was back in the day too. The flower is getting stronger, and so there's more cannabinoids that people are ingesting. So one interesting point though is, what is too much? How do we know what too much is?
Right.
Too much varies per person. I personally don't think I was using too much. I was consuming daily almost, but I wasn't a heavy user. I was a nighttime user. So it's an interesting point of what is too much? How do we know what too much is? When do we overload our endocannabinoid system? And I hope to, in the next few years come to have answers for that and know what too much truly is for someone and figure out how to detect that so someone doesn't hit that point.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad that I found you out there and was able to connect with your story and help you get this word out to more people. And I thank you for your time here, Alice. And please, everybody, go out and check out Alice Moon and all of the websites that we mentioned. I'll put links to it on the show. And is there anything I didn't ask you before we wrap this up that you'd like to get out?
I think we covered it all. Thank you so much for having me
Okay.
today. I really appreciate you helping me amplify the message of CHS.
Oh, my pleasure. And we will get this out immediately, so people can hear this. And I thank you, and I'm so happy that you are a survivor and a success story here. And many well wishes to you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. A little pause there we had, and I just want to say I had a couple other questions back to Alice, as far as where we are, and has CHS affected? How has it affected others, and if there's ever been any other people that have had these symptoms and they've ever passed away? Is that something you can talk to us about?
So there's been 4 deaths that have been documented from CHS, one of which was pretty recently, and it was a 17-year-old boy who died from it, who was having severe symptoms and didn't really fully believe that it was cannabis causing it, and he died from kidney failure from dehydration from all the throwing up. So his mom is a huge advocate for CHS. She talks about it a lot, and she's actually 100% pro legalization and safe access because she knows with legalization will come research, and we want research and we want answers. Even though she lost her son to this, she's still pro cannabis. And yeah, there's been people who have committed suicide who have CHS. Their parents have come into the Facebook group and have told us about the loss of their children because it's insufferable to have it. A lot of people use cannabis as their medicine for depression, anxiety, bipolar, mental health, physical reasons as well. And so when you're not able to use your medication, it can really mess up your mind. I personally was using cannabis for anxiety and depression for years and years, and not being able to use it became a huge challenge in my life last year. I was mentally suffering, and I tried to live a year without it, without any medication or anything, but ultimately had to get on antidepressants this year because I just couldn't function. I was very, very depressed. And I think people need to realize that aspect of this is like, sure, you quit using cannabis and the symptoms of CHS go away, but what are the repercussions of quitting using cannabis? It can be very detrimental.
And as we're evolving with this legalization throughout the country and around the world, this is something we have to take in consideration as using cannabis as a medicine, but not to over medicate, and learning these things. And holy cow, my heart goes out to those families. And this is why we have these kinds of shows with real world people that living real world lives and having these real world experiences. And Alice, any, my heart goes out to you, and I'm so thankful that you're here to share your story with us. And to those that have lost lives, my heart goes to their family as well.
Yeah, and people, if they're interested in learning more about the son who died, Brian, they can watch the Yahoo documentary that came out. Yahoo put out a documentary earlier this year, so they can Google and find it pretty easily. And it talks about my story and Brian's story as well.
Oh wow. So there's already a documentary out about this. That's great information. I look forward to getting that out there. So in the show notes, I'm going to try to find that link and put that out there for people as well. Once again, Alice, thank you for coming back and sharing that last little bit of information. I think that's extremely vital. And, cannabis users and cannabis friends out there, cannabis may not be for everybody. And this is an awareness to make sure that people go about taking and consuming medications appropriately. And when you're coming off of cannabis use, things are different, and you do want to work with professionals to help you be stable in your life. And depression is a real thing too. So I give you big hugs,
Thank
and
you.
thank you very much, Alice.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Well, you just heard from Alice Moon once again about CHS and cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. And I said that wrong, so I do apologize, Alice. But we are going to have the show notes to everybody to go ahead and get a hold of Alice and reach out. And, this is a real issue, people. This is something that you have to consider. And as we get a little older, whether we're old, or age isn't really a thing, but I know I pay attention to what I'm putting in my body as I get older. And we have to break out of the routine and madness of completely ignoring things like this. This is education, and this is what the Hemp Chat's about: inspiration, education, and innovation. And the message needs to be put out there, and we do have to be true to our missions. And as you know, my mission is planting seeds of wellness for the people on the planet. And you just heard from Alice that she is still pro hemp and cannabis. She just wishes that she's on a mission to try to find out what will work for her. And we are under research in this country. And I believe, cannabis, and she even believes that cannabis helps and aids people into their healing. And we see that, but we also have to be aware that it can also be detrimental. And maybe there's pre-testing we can do to determine if you're a candidate for the CHS before you even start consuming hemp or cannabis. So as always, as we stated, talk to your doctors. Be there. You are your body's keeper. So if you're going to put something into your body, get all the research. It's no different than going out and slamming a can of cola or whatever. I don't try to drop any of those names because I don't drink it. But my point is only put the good things in you. And if there's good things that cause you harm, learn about them. All right, guys. And here on the Hemp Chat, we love you guys. And we thank you for being a part of what we're doing. And Alice also was wondering, and we're going to put together a poll, but please let us know how many minority farmers are out there. We kind of want to know how many minority farmers there are. And we also want to know how many female farmers there are, hemp and cannabis. And so I'm going to put together a poll, and I really would like your cooperation on going to www.thehempchat.com, and I'll get that poll up there for you guys. Please, we want to, and we value your insight and information and data. So in Hemp we trust. We love you guys, and be safe out there. And let's make the world a better place.